Today we're doing a transmission service on a Ford F250. It's got the 7.3 litre V8 diesel in it, and it's got the 4R100 transmission in it, not the E4OD. They are a similar transmission. This one's a four-wheel drive version, so it's got the deeper pan as well. So we're going to just blow out the pan, just make sure all that loose dirt's not on it. There's your filter. You've got your solenoid block over here if you ever need to replace that. And if you ever need the selector shaft replaced, you've got to undo that big nut in there. I'm just gonna, these filters are just a push-in type, and you can also see it's got a, I think it's a 45 or 48 mil snorkel on these. The other ones have got a 20 mil snorkel on them. So we just wiggle this out. We'll get the tray underneath. You can see in the pan there is a magnet there. So if you don't remove the pan, you can't clean that magnet. If you can't clean the magnet doesn't work after it gets covered in that rubbish, and the next place all that fine metal runs to are your solenoids, in the solenoid block. So it's important to actually clean that instead of just draining the oil and doing an oil change. And you can see how thick that fine metal is. It's sort of like the consistency of grease. And that stuff will be suspended in the oil because of the thickness of the oil, and once that magnet becomes covered, it can't work anymore, so that muck will be in the solenoid block. Much bigger job. So if you want to get the maximum life out of a transmission, you need to do regular servicing to replace the filter. And you can also see these little dimples on the filter. There's fine metal in there as well. This is the top side of the filter where it sucks up or sucks out the oil down there. So it's a very good idea to actually remove the pan so you can clean that magnet, replace the filter. They're not a cheap transmission to rebuild. You'll just get maximum life out of it. The job we like to do on the pans here, if you have a look, we've got this little press, and we just press those holes back down. You can see that one's pretty flush. On some pans the hole actually is pushed right up, and especially if it's on a cork rubber type gasket, the more you tighten it, the more that'll cut into the gasket. So it's a good idea to just knock these bolt holes back down. Well, we've got a press there, it does it pretty quickly. You can see how it's just, I can focus on it, you can see how it's pushed down instead of this one. It's pretty flat. Probably not so important with these rubber gaskets, but worth doing anyway. We just do it out of habit. Now on the pan it actually says that these gaskets, or the rubber gaskets, are reusable. We always like to replace them. If you do choose to keep the old one, just make sure that the rubber hasn't flattened out or it hasn't hardened, it's still pliable. And also another thing to consider is that the cost of the oil in these, or the transmission fluid, greatly outweighs the cost of a pan seal. So if you put the old one back on and it's leaking fluid, you got to drop the pan on it to replace it again anyway. So choice is yours. We like to replace them. I got the magnet all nice and clean, and I'm not going to put it like this. I'm going to actually leave it in that corner like that. The pickup for the filter's over this side. So what that'll do, it'll raise that magnet up on that edge, probably even like that might be better. So it's got maximum surface area working there. So you want to try and collect as much of that rubbish that's floating around in that transmission as possible. So I'll probably leave it like that. It's not going to be in the way of the plug or anything like that. Even if it does move over here, the plug's just going to push it up anyway. So we've pressed that pan out, new pan seal, putting the magnet in a place, in a spot where we get the surface area from on the underside of the magnet working as well. It'll just make that magnet more efficient. So I'm just going to push that, the filter just pushes up into there. Just make sure you've got that oil seal or filter seal in place, and we're just going to clean around that pan rail a little bit and we can put it back on. Clean the pan rail, you can see it's nice and clean now. There's no little bits of road dirt or anything there. Got the filter back on. Another little trick I like to do, especially when you're working on the ground like this, what happens when you're putting the pan on, sometimes the gaskets fall out or move or whatever. So what I do is I just tie a couple of bits of wire through the bolt holes just loosely. I've probably put them in the wrong spot. I should have put one over here and one over here. But I'll put all those bolts on just loose, and then I can just untie that wire and take it out, and that'll just hold it in place. Got the bolts in, I can just untie that and just pull that wire out. I've got all the bolts on now, pan's still loose. Now I'm just going to hold it up in the middle and just do one either side, and then I can tighten it up. Those pan seals, they have a little washer in the rubber, so you can't actually over tighten them. You just want these nice and snug. I'm on the Tritech lubricants, or tritechlubricants.com website. Just looking for the recommended transmission oil. It recommends the ATF Multitrans, the full synthetic, or you can also use the Dextron 3. I'm going to opt for the full synthetic. This is the bloke uses this one as a fifth wheeler, so he's got the big caravan that he tows at the back. So we're going to go the full synthetic on it. And there it is there, you can see it does the Mercon 5. And that recommendation is on the dipstick as well. I've got my drain tin there, and I know that 1 centimetre is 1 litre, so we've got 3.5 centimetres of oil came out of it. So I'm going to start off by filling 3.5 litres into the transmission, and then we'll go from there. Now the filler tubes on these are basically horizontal, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shove a hose right down as far as it'll go, and then we'll fill it like that. If you're doing it with the funnel, you're going to get oil going all over everything. There we go, the hose is in. I'm going to put 7 pumps of oil in there, which will be 3.5 litres. Half a litre each pump. And I've got 3.5 litres in. We can start it up now. And just select all the gears. There we go. Took a couple of goes to get reverse. By the time that oil sucks up through the filter and up into park. And now just check the oil level. got to put another litre in, way below the bottom mark there. So it must have come in low on fluid. Half litres went into it. It's showing on that cold fluid mark. The oil will expand as it warms up, so it's important to have the transmission on these at operating temperature and check the oil level, make sure it's within that range on the hot mark. And another thing is it's important to not overfill or underfill the transmission. If you overfill it, the oil can hit the spinning parts and aerate the oil. So, and then you'll get spongy shifts. Air can be compressed, oil can't be. So you don't want to have air bubbles or foaming in there either. Sometimes when people have little oil leaks or whatever, they overcompensate the fluid level, and you can actually end up burning out clutches and bands like that. So it's also a good idea to get any leaks repaired as you go along. So I'm going to take this one for a test run, get it to operating temperature and just check that fluid level. If I do overfill it, we've got a vacuum pump that we just stick the hose into the level and just suck a little bit out. If you're doing it on the ground on your own, you might have to just trickle a bit out of that drain plug there until you get the oil level right. Back from the road test, and it's showing that it's very low. That's why it's very important to not just put the same amount of fluid back in. You've got to actually measure it at operating temperature. It was just under 6 litres. We had to suck a little bit out. Anyway, thank you for watching.